Here's a question for you. What happens to your clients if something happens to you? While I know it's not something that we like to think about, we do have to plan for the unexpected. What if we die or we become seriously injured while we're in the middle of seeing all of our clients and running our business? As a therapist, it's part of our ethical obligation to be prepared in case something happens to us to take care of our clients. In this video, I'm going to break it down as to why you need a professional will and what you need to do to take care of your clients. The difference between a professional will and your personal will is that the professional will is simply going to just take care of your business life, and your personal will only take care of your personal effects, like your home, your vehicle, and that sort of thing. They are two separate things. You do not need to have the same person do both. Typically, when we're looking at a professional will, you're having a trusted colleague, someone who is within your own association or college, or someone within the mental health field, another therapist, psychotherapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, take care of all of this. Whilst with your personal will, it's going to be more of an executor of your choosing, such as a family member or a friend. The purpose of a professional will is essentially to have a designated colleague to manage your caseload in terms of terminating all of the clients, taking care of any financial or billing aspects, closing your practice, and ensuring that clients have access to their notes. The fact of the matter is that life is deeply unpredictable, as we all know, but yet it's something that we don't actually even prepare for. This is an ethical requirement as part of my association, which is the CCPA here in Canada. But I would also encourage you to check your association or college as well, as I'm pretty sure they're all going to say the exact same thing. And even if they don't state it, I would still deeply and highly recommend that you have a professional will anyway. And this is really to take care of our clients. For me, especially as an EMDR therapist, if something happened to me in the middle of treatment, then my poor clients, they wouldn't know what my plan is necessarily, or they need to have access to their notes so that they can take that then to a new therapist to continue on with treatment. And one example that I have is I've had that really difficult, awkward, hard conversation where I had heard through the grapevine that a counselor had died, and there was no understanding if there was a professional will involved or who was going to take care of their clients, let them know, or help them get access to their charts. And I had to let someone know who's just sitting there and waiting for their therapist who did not show up. And I had to tell them that I heard through the grapevine what had happened, and then having to tend to that client and care for them as well while I'm also in the middle of my own workday. Illnesses happen, emergencies happen, and our life can change in the blink of an eye. And it's not fair to our clients to bear the burden of us not being prepared. There's a big sense of having a peace of mind with having a professional will. Personally, now that I have mine all set up, and it's actually been set up for quite a while, I can breathe with relief because I know that if anything were to ever happen to me, that I know my clients are going to be okay. They're going to be okay because I know they're going to get the information that they need. I know that the person that I've chosen to do and I guess execute, being the executor of my professional will take care of all the details. And I know that my clients are going to be deeply cared for in this very difficult transition. So it's been very relieving for me. I don't have to worry about it. And I know that they're going to be in really good hands and they can get the information that they need so that they can kind of be supported throughout their next journey with a therapist. The components of a professional will are going to go over a few different things. Number one, it's going to be client notification. How are your clients going to be notified of your death or your inability to work due to health reasons? Number two is record management. With record management, it means that your colleague will have access to the charts so that they can pass this along to their clients. Even in death, we are still obligated to keep our files for the X number of years. With my association, it is 7 years that I need to keep these files. So the executor, your colleague, will need to have access to this information. So they either need to know what the password is, for example, they need to be made as a member on your account, or they need to know where the key is if you use paper files. Number 3 is practice closure. This means that the executor, your colleague, will need to essentially close your practice. So they would have to deal with all the business details of shutting down the practice, terminating the lease, dealing with the financials. This would also include CRA, for example, here in Canada, or any of those little details that it takes to run a practice. So number 4, saving the best for last, is who is going to be your executor? This is a deeply critical, important moment. It's really, really important that you choose someone that, number 1, that you trust, and number 2, that has the ability to take on this responsibility. And while we know that the odds of this happening are going to be very small, there's a shot that it's going to happen. So we do have to be very considerate and mindful as to who this person is going to be, and that it may change year to year. You may have picked someone out maybe a year or 2 ago and had the conversation. My God, please, I hope you've had the conversation with them to discuss this and share all the information. However, it may shift and change throughout the years. So you do need to revisit who this person is going to be along the way. So it needs to be someone who is responsible, someone who is, on a deep level that they will be able to close down this practice because they cannot siphon it out to somebody else. It needs to be a trusted colleague who can deal with this. The other piece that for me is a very important thing is I also have business insurance. And the reason why I have business insurance is that if something were to happen, then there is going to be a payout, and then I can help compensate my colleague for taking on this responsibility, because it can be hours and hours and hours of their time that they both weren't expecting and nor maybe not being compensated for. So for me, it was a very important piece to have that business insurance side of things so that they can be properly compensated at their hourly rate to tend to closing down my practice. Common mistakes to avoid. The first one is not having a professional will. That's, I guess, like a pretty clear-cut one. But the mistake I see is that people have something in their mind, but nothing is written out. There's no documentation of it. They have it as a theoretical idea that one day this would happen and so could take care of it. But they've never talked to the person about it, or they have, but that person has absolutely no information. They have no access to keys. They have no access to their computer. They have no access to passwords. They have access to absolutely nothing. So the biggest mistake I see is it's a theoretical idea, but there's been no implementation of it whatsoever. The second mistake I see often is they choose the wrong person. So they've picked someone that doesn't have the capacity to fulfill this, or that it's someone who is also a very deep, close friend, and so they are also very distraught about your death, and they are unable to fulfill those tasks. So it's important to pick someone who is close, but also not too close. Someone that you know that would be able to fulfill these duties if something were to happen to you. You may know someone who is lovely and wonderful, but follow through is not their strong suit. So this would be someone that is not going to be a good fit. Instead, choose someone that you know will follow through on the tasks at hand. This also means on your end that you have to give them a big checklist of every single thing that needs to get done. Don't assume that they're going to know what to do. They don't. So give them a very complete and thorough checklist, including like a password manager system so they know how to get into your passwords, to do all those details that they need to do to be successful in closing down your practice. Another mistake that I see is failing to update it. So things are going to change. Life is going to change. Personally, I went from a sole proprietor to now having my own clinic, and that has fundamentally shifted and changed what my professional will looks like, because I have a much bigger obligation now to my team, my clients, and business obligations. So, how do you create a professional will as a therapist? The first step is to draft one. Thankfully, there are many templates online that you can look for. Your association or college may have a template available so that you can go through and start to complete it. You need to consult with either your association or college or a lawyer to kind of go through that you've hit every single thing that you need to hit when it comes to having a professional will. They always can include some really great insights that you may not even be aware of at all that you need to have completed. You need to keep this stored in a secure manner that your executor has access to. For example, I have things emailed to my executor. I also have this on a secure platform as well in case they can't find the email. I would strongly encourage you to block off a chunk of time in your schedule to actually take care of this. And it doesn't have to be done all in one shot, all in one day. You might take out a block of time, let's say this Friday for an hour, to just start to reviewing things, do some research, to ponder it, and then build in some step-by-step blocks every single week for the next few weeks until you complete this task. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. I know that it can, but doing it in small 1-hour chunks can make a very big difference in just getting this task completed because it's something that you're ethically obligated to do. This is a very big topic, so I would encourage you to ask any questions that you have, share any thoughts you have in the chat below. Now that you know why professional wills are critical to have as part of your practice, now let's talk about another sticky situation, dual relationships. Dual relationships can look like a number of different things. In my next video, I'm going to show you what you need to know to how to handle dual relationships professionally and ethically.